Angus Taylor, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. What do you make of this unemployment figure today?
Well, it's always good to see low unemployment, Andrew, but beneath that number is something much more concerning, which is Australians working more for less. We've seen around 5% increase in hours worked or over that, and yet the economy shuddering to a halt. We're seeing inflation going up much faster than wages, so real wages going backwards. And of course, productivity is completely shot, Andrew, down 4.6% in the last 12 months. That's absolutely extraordinary. That's almost half of the gains of the previous decade lost in just a single year. And of course, the result of that is Australians do feel like they're working harder for less, and that's exactly what is happening because of that underlying dynamic. Now, the truth is there's much government can do to influence this, and even today we've just seen the Productivity Commission to come out and criticise a number of the spending initiatives of this Labor government. We've opposed $45 billion of spending that we think is not going to deliver for Australians in recent months, and we need Labor absolutely focused on ensuring that we're fighting inflation first, ensuring that real wages go up, and productivity is absolutely essential to achieving that.
Do you think this figure increases the prospect of another rate rise next month?
Well, that's a matter for the Reserve Bank. I don't try to second-guess the Reserve Bank. What I would say, though, Andrew, is if this government puts the right policies in place, then it will take pressure off the Reserve Bank. Right now, we've got a government that is going in exactly the wrong direction to take pressure off interest rates and inflation. It's got the wrong industrial relations policies, the wrong energy policies, and it's spending in the wrong way. And as I said, the Productivity Commission has made that very, very clear today. So they are not making the job easier to get inflation and interest rates down. And that has to be the first, second and third priority of the government,
right.
Not the Canberra Voice or other things. That's got to be the top priority.
Understand your point. If you're elected then, what spending would you cut?
Well, we've already opposed $45 billion of spending in recent months.
Does that include the childcare subsidy, the manufacturing fund?
Yes, it does. And of course, the Productivity Commission, the manufacturing fund, was a focus for the Productivity Commission today, and they made the point that these are very high-risk initiatives that they end up not delivering for Australia, not delivering higher real wages, not delivering a stronger economy.
But aren't they just taking interest off those funds? They're not spending the whole $15 billion of that fund, for example, are they?
$18 billion of interest payments, Andrew. We all pay for this. We all pay for this. This is real money. And this is a government that is spending money in the wrong way. Let's be clear, $185 billion of extra spending since they came into government. $185 billion.
Do you agree?
That's over $7,000. Just be clear. Can I finish? Over $7,000 for every Australian, Andrew. Now, that alongside industrial relations policies, energy policies, productivity policies, it's all heading in the wrong direction, and that's why Australians are working more for less.
Do you agree with Michelle Bullock we'll have to see higher unemployment to see inflation come down?
You know, I'm not going to get into sort of trying to forecast the trade-off between inflation and unemployment. But what I will say is this. You can improve that trade-off with the right policies. There is no question about that. If you have productivity that's strong, if you have the right energy policies that's putting downward pressure on inflation, if you have the right industrial relations policies that's improving productivity and putting downward pressure on inflation, then the trade-off between unemployment and inflation changes. And that's what this government is not focused on. And let's be clear. Phil Lowe has made this point on multiple occasions. Government policy does have an impact on getting inflation down. He's talked about industrial relations policies, for instance. He's talked about the importance of productivity in recent weeks in a very good speech given a few weeks back. You can break these trade-offs, but you can only break these trade-offs if you have the right policies, and right now we don't from this government.
So is the hope that inflation comes down at the time stage 3 tax cuts come into place? Could you see any eventuality where those tax cuts shouldn't go ahead?
Look, it's very clear that the best way to put downward pressure on inflation using fiscal policy is to manage spending. There's no doubt about that. The problem is we want to see a strong economy, Andrew, and that means lower taxes, not higher taxes. The truth is that in the absence of the stage 3 tax cuts, for the typical Australian, taxes go up through bracket creep. They go up. There's an automatic increase in people's average tax rates because of rising inflation. So it's crucial we see these stage 3 tax cuts go through. I know Labor wants to increase taxes. I know a sneaky tax like bracket creep is the sort of tax they love. They'd love to get rid of the stage 3 tax cuts, but they committed to them before the last election. We committed to them before the last election. And so it's really important that they follow through on that commitment. They're not following through on other commitments, but this one matters, like all of them, and we'd like to see them continually recommit to that.
What's your reaction to the Jason Clare education reforms flagged yesterday?
Well, it's early days. I haven't had a chance to look through them all, Andrew. What I would say is this. I mean, it is crucially important that we see an education system that delivers for our kids right from primary, childcare, primary, secondary, all the way through to university and vocational education. And we need to see an education system that's focused on getting the basics right. I think there is a strong sense out there in the community, and certainly a strong sense from the international comparisons that we periodically get, the PISA comparisons, that we haven't been getting the basics right, and we need to. And this needs to be a strong focus. I know Sarah Henderson is absolutely focused on this, and she'll have more to say about this in the coming days and weeks.
All right. Now, you mentioned that the Voice was a second-order issue. Do you then welcome the decision by the PM to hold a short campaign on the Voice?
Well, can I say improving Indigenous disadvantage is not a second-order issue, but the Voice, the Canberra Voice, is. It's just not a pathway to do that. It's permanent, it's broad-ranging, it's very uncertain in its application, other than we know it is very broad-ranging in its words. And so we do think it's absolutely the wrong way to reverse that disadvantage and to drive reconciliation, which we all want to see. So, look, the government will decide how it wants the campaign to proceed. I'll focus on the substance of the issues, and that's the sorts of principles that I just talked about.